You can begin.
Good evening, everyone. I am Councilwoman Gomes from the city of South Fulton, and we have Councilwoman Helen Zenobia Willis, also from the city of South Fulton, and we have Elise Fisher from the Cedar Grove Community Association. And we are super excited to have you here today to participate in our second virtual forum that we are representing the two highest voting districts in the city of South Fulton, District 2 and District 3. We find it very, very important that we continue to bring information to our residents. And we know that this race is very, very important. So we want you all to be able to get the information out to our residents. So we're excited again to have you here today. There's so much more that we could talk about, but tonight's forum is about making sure that we educate our constituents. We're excited to have our special guest moderator for the evening, Miss Angelique Proctor. You'll learn a little bit more about her in just a moment, but right now I will turn it over to Councilwoman Willis, who will give some information.
Good evening, City of South Fulton and Fulton County residents and any other residents who have joined us this evening. Thank you so much for your attention and participation. Thank you to all of the candidates for your participation. I commend you for wanting to serve. Some of us are already serving and some of us are hoping to serve, and this is not an easy, being a public servant is not an easy task. It's sometimes a thankless job, but when you see the smiling faces from the rewards of your work, it makes it all worthwhile. I am not going to prolong this introduction because we want to make sure that you have all the time you need to present your platform. Thank you, Ms. Angelique Proctor, for moderating our second forum. Again, Councilmember Gomes did mention that we do represent the two highest voting districts in the city of South Fulton. We both share Walker Mall and Cliftondale. And so we just want to make sure our residents make informed decisions when they go to the poll. This is not a platform where we're going to endorse anyone or we're going to advocate for any political party. We know that you all are all running for nonpartisan seats, and we just want residents to make the best decision possible when they go to the poll. Thank you.
Elise, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, I'll be quick. Thank you, Councilwoman. Thank you all candidates for participating in tonight's event. Thank you, Ms. Proctor, for agreeing to moderate. As the Councilwoman has said, this is a very important election year. Many key roles are to be voted on this year. We in Cedar Grove, District 4, City of South Fulton, believe forums make it easier for all of us to learn about candidates, develop our own points of view, and help us to decide who will best serve our community. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. I'm sure you'll find it worth your time, and you'll get to learn more about these candidates. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. And as you know, our first forum was very successful. We have a very high viewership. So we do anticipate a lot of individuals joining. Also, too, we want to make sure that you all are aware that we do monitor the chat room. So no disparaging comments or anything of that nature will make it to you. So without further ado, I'm just going to read a quick bio for Ms. Proctor. Ms. Angelique Proctor is a reporter for Fox 5 News. Before joining Fox 5 in 1994, this Atlanta native was an investigative reporter for WTLV in Jacksonville, Florida. She also reported and anchored at WKRC in Cincinnati, WMAZ in Macon, Georgia, and WALB in Albany, Georgia. But for Angelique, her broadcasting career first started on a program called The Lawmakers on Georgia Public Television. Before working in front of the camera, Angelique worked behind the mic at several radio stations in Cincinnati and even served as news director at WCIN. So without further ado, this is Ms. Angelique Proctor. Thank you for moderating.
It is my pleasure. Thank you very much, Councilwoman Gomes.
Good evening to everyone and welcome. We would like to thank you for joining us on this Thursday evening. As you know, there is so much swirling around us, and by your presence here, your virtual presence through YouTube, you have decided that it's important to be here, that you understand that having a stable community is very important. And we do that by electing judges and officials who represent the ideas that we would like to see go forth. So we are pleased that you are here. We know that you're conscientious and you will do a good job tonight. Now, the first thing I want to remind everyone is that the election is coming up June 9th. And it is our hope that everyone will vote because that election has changed a bit. So we want everybody to mark their calendars and to know to come out June 9th to vote for the people that you'll hear from tonight. Just a few housekeeping rules this evening. This is a judicial forum, so it is not a debate. We are encouraging our candidates to share their platforms and ideas for Fulton County, and we are not dealing in any personal attacks. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement. Then we will move into the question and answer segment. The questions were submitted by residents in advance. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to respond to the question and then 60 seconds for a rebuttal. Now, we do have an official timekeeper here with us tonight. Miss Elise Fisher will take on that duty. We will also be taking a few questions from our YouTube audience. So please submit those live as you feel the need. Finally, we will conclude with 90 seconds. That will be a closing statement from each of our candidates. So let's begin right now with our opening statements. And we have 8 candidates tonight. We would like to hear from everyone. We're going to begin with the seat that is being vacated by Judge Constance Russell. She is not seeking re-election, so she has 4 people who are interested in that post. We're going to begin with Tamika Rabowski Houston. If you would give your opening statement, followed by Liz Kuhn, and then we will go with Judge Melanie Leffridge Harris, and then Judge Ashley Baker Osby.
Thank you very much. I am Tamika Rabowski Houston, and I have been a resident of Fulton County for the last 7.5 years, and I've practiced in Fulton County courts throughout my legal career. I'm running for Fulton County Superior Court Judge because Fulton County deserves a Superior Court judge with the experience, knowledge, and work ethic to make intelligent decisions in an efficient manner. I am that judge, and I am currently making those types of decisions in Fulton County Superior Court's Family Division as I preside over conferences, hearings, and trials in domestic relations and protective order cases. Fulton County Superior Court is Georgia's busiest trial court, and I bring to the bench 26+ years of legal experience, where I've served as a prosecutor, federal agency counsel, special assistant U.S. attorney, criminal defense counsel, and solo practitioner. And I was recently named a 2020 Georgia super lawyer. My vision for Fulton County as a whole is for it to be a desirable and safe place to live, work, and visit. My vision for Fulton County Superior Court in particular is that we become a model court in terms of the service that we provide. To get there, efficiency can be increased through greater consistency in courtroom operating procedures, as well as upgrades in technology and greater coordination in the resources that are available within the various offices in the courthouse. We can also continue to work to be more accessible and more user-friendly to the general public by providing general direction and clear direction about what the court expects from litigants and what litigants can expect from the courts. We can also increase awareness of the legal resources that are available right there in the courthouse. That is my vision for Fulton County and Fulton County Superior Court. And with your vote, I can continue to serve Fulton County and actively pursue this vision as your elected Superior Court judge by continuing to do the work and do it well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Kuhn?
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for the invitation. My name is Liz Kuhn, and I'm running for the open seat for Fulton County Superior Court Judge. I'm running because it's time for me to give back to you, this community. If it wasn't for your support throughout my life, I would not be here. Like 65% of Fulton County voters, I'm a transplant. My mother was a single mom in the U.S. Army, and we moved around my entire life. After law school, I decided to move to Atlanta and I chose Fulton County, and I hope Fulton County chooses me. I moved to Milton in 2011. It's a city north in Fulton County, and we have been there with our children ever since. My vision for Fulton County is to continue the efforts of our leaders to unite us, not divide us. My vision as your next judge is to elevate the accessibility and fairness of the court system, all while I commit to ethical and sound judgment as your next Superior Court judge. I'm a new face as a prospective judge. I will be fair, accessible, committed, ethical when serving our community. When you or a loved one are in court, it means something went wrong. I, as a private attorney, help people through the worst parts of their lives. I listen, I understand, I educate myself continually on the law and with the issues facing our communities. These qualities transfer to being an even-handed, fair judge that will unite us, not divide us. Currently, I'm working with Bishop Fan and Reverend Elligan in Fulton County on outreach projects. I organize food pantry drives. I've been doing that for quite some time. Today, I worked with the North Georgia Labor Council, the United Way, the Retail Wholesale Department Store Union to help hand out necessities for people in our community that are suffering. Being a judge is not just about making fair, ethical, and sound decisions. Being a judge requires a constant connectivity with parts of our community. For those reasons, I'm
10
asking for
seconds.
your vote. Vote Liz Kuhn. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Judge Lethbridge Harris.
Yes, thank you, Councilwoman Gumbs and Willis, Ms. Fisher, Ms. Proctor, candidates, audience. I'm delighted to be here. My name is Judge Melanie Lethbridge Harris. I'm incredibly proud to have been a resident of Fulton County for 30 years and a Cascade Heights homeowner for nearly 25 years. I'm a Spelman College and Georgetown Law graduate and our candidate for Fulton County Superior Court Judge. I'm also a wife, a bonus mom to two amazing young adults, and for the past 10 years, a full-time judge working hard for Fulton County families on our magistrate court. For the past 5 years, I've been sitting as a Superior Court judge by designation. I'm running for judge because as a law student, I saw a sitting judge berate a domestic violence survivor and everyone else in the courtroom. As our next Fulton County Superior Court judge, I'll bring respect to our courtrooms and fight every day to make every Fulton neighborhood safer. My vision for our county is one where every senior feels safe in their home. That's one of the reasons I've been endorsed by Ambassador Andy Young, Governor Roy Barnes, Atlanta City Council President Felicia Moore, Fulton County Commissioner Marvin Arrington, Atlanta City Council members Michael Julian Bond and Cletus Winslow, Representatives William Bodie and Roger Bruce, former East Point Mayor Patsy Jo Hilliard, my mayor, South Fulton, Bill Edwards, my councilwoman, South Fulton Councilwoman Catherine Foster Rowell, and a long list of other community leaders. I'm very honored and humbled to have these endorsements, but the endorsement that really matters the most to me is yours. I hope to earn your support, your prayers, and your vote on June 9th.
Thank you. Judge Osby.
Hi there, I'm Ashley Baker Osby, and I'm also seeking the seat for Superior Court that Judge Constance Russell is vacating. I am a native of the Metro Atlanta area. I've lived on both the north and south sides of the metro area. I've been a Fulton County resident for 30 years. I graduated from Woodward Academy. I went to Tulane University, then Georgia State for law school. I also went back to school and got an LLM at Alabama in business with taxation. And I started my career clerking for two different Superior Court judges. But the first Superior Court judge I clerked for, the late Honorable Roland Barnes, was really the reason that I chose to become a Superior Court judge. I knew that the way he treated his constituents and everyone around him, lawyers and anybody coming in front of him, he was just open and honest and fair and respectful. And that was something that I wanted to be able to do. And that's what I've been doing as a judge on the magistrate court. And I treat everybody in front of me, understanding that they are a person and there's always going to be a change in their life long after I get off the bench and take that robe off. So I started, my first bench experience was as a probate court judge, and then I went over to the magistrate court where I've been for 4 years. And basically, I'm looking to make Fulton County it's already a positive and diverse community. We want to make it a safe community as well. But as for the courts, I think that the courts need to be efficient and effective. I want to make sure we're not having backlog on cases and working diligently with all of the people who come in contact with the judicial branch, so that everyone's having clear communication and having an open office for everyone. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And for our next post, opening statements from Judge Rebecca Crumrine Reeder, and then her challenger, Ms. Shamila Williams.
Audio.
Judge, can you start over? We clipped your audio there in the beginning. We
I'm
apologize.
muted, sorry.
Oh, okay.
I figured it out. The beauty of having done Zooms all day for court. Thank you for having me this evening and for hosting this virtual forum. I'm Judge Rebecca Crumrine Reeder. I've resided in Metro Atlanta since my graduation from law school in 2001, in the city of Atlanta for 17 years, and Fulton County for 5. I've practiced in Fulton since passing the bar and currently serve as a board member of the Atlanta Bar Association. I was appointed to the Fulton County bench in November of 2018, and I'm here to continue to represent you. I sought this position because I wanted to return to public service. I wanted to give back and serve our community fairly, independently, and with dignity and respect. I balance defendants' rights and the safety of the community. I've not been overturned in any of my rulings. I inherited a backlog of cases, reduced the backlog, and made sure people were given their day in court. I volunteered for and preside over Behavioral Health Treatment Court, an accountability diversion court providing nonviolent felony defendants with pre-existing mental health diagnosis a second chance. I'm a former public school teacher, and I bring to the bench the same qualities and experience of helping families and youth. Now in the family division, I'm moving cases even in COVID-19 by creating and implementing ways to meeting the needs of the litigants through technology. My vision for Fulton County includes the important work being done in the accountability courts and providing diversion programs to assist those with mental health issues who've crossed with the criminal justice system. My vision has already started to come into focus. We have a systemic mental health issue in our community, and building upon the base of behavioral treatment, health court has already begun. Since volunteering to take on this important court, the Hope Healing Foundation, a 501c3 arm to support behavioral health treatment court, has been created. The foundation is already assisting, spreading information about the courts, as well as partnering with the community. I uphold my oath. I'm honest, fair, experienced. I abide by the Georgia Code of Judicial Conduct. I rule timely. My record, my case count, and the disposition of cases assigned to my division I oversee support these statements. Courtroom 4B is open, and you are always welcome. I'm honored to serve Fulton County, and with your support and vote, I will continue to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. And you did break up there a bit, but we will hear from you again later. All right, Ms. Williams.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Shamila Williams. I was born and raised right here in Fulton County, specifically in Atlanta, Georgia. When I was 12 years old, we moved to East Point, but prior to that, I lived on the southwest side of Atlanta. Who am I? So I am someone who has been in this community, served in this community, and worked in this community since I was a child, through Girl Scouts, my church, my sorority, and a host of other volunteer opportunities. I am someone who has been committed to Fulton since day one. My father was murdered when I was 7 years old. My brother has been wrongfully arrested, and I had to help to get him out of jail when he was arrested for a crime that he did not commit based on a mistaken identity. I've been a prosecutor. I've been a criminal defense attorney. I've worked with families in family law, husbands and wives, mothers and sons, fathers, all of the above on both sides of the fence. I'm currently a civil attorney where I represent both individuals and businesses in lawsuits. So my experience is that of balance. My vision for the court is that balance come to the bench. I am committed to integrity, accountability in the process. I'm committed to making our community a better, safer place for everyone. So plain and simple, I'm running for judge because I, like most of you, am sick and tired of seeing crime rates go up and up and up in our community and quality of living going down. I'm sick and tired of feeling like there's a revolving door where nothing ever gets happened and nothing ever happens and no one is ever held accountable. So I am running for judge to make our community a better, safer place for everyone. My vision for the court is that it become a place where when people go in, they come out feeling whole. They come out feeling as though whatever happened to bring them into the place has been rectified, that they were listened to, that they were respected, and
10
that
seconds.
they had a court that was for them and with someone who listened to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. And our last post, Judge Rochelle Carnicel, and then she will be followed by Tiffany Carter-Sellers.
Thank you so much. Thank you to Ms. Fisher and Councilwomen Willis and Gum. Thank you, Ms. Proctor. I appreciate you asking us the questions tonight. I've been seeing you on television for so long, it seems like an old friend is giving our questions this evening. I have lived in the county for the last 15 years consecutively, but I moved to Fulton County when I came here for law school in 1989. I've lived in the Atlanta community, I've lived in the Buckhead community, and now I've lived in North Fulton County in the area now known as Johns Creek for the last 15 years with my family. I'm married to a criminal defense attorney. We have 2 children, 2 young boys, one of whom is a middle schooler and the other who is a high schooler. He has special needs, my high schooler, and he frames a lot of how I see things from the bench. And I can discuss that more later, but we live very happily in North Fulton County. The question for me is not why I ran, but why I sought an appointment. I was appointed in June of 2019 to this seat by the sitting governor. And really, I decided to apply for a judgeship after 18 years experience trying cases in Superior Court around the metro area. I tried all types of cases, but specialized in child homicide and child crimes, but I've tried every kind of case there is, and 10 more years experience leading agencies and programs like the Office of the Child Advocate, the Georgia Child Death Investigation Program, and the State Office of DFACS. So I have dealt with the citizens of Fulton County who are living at the margins and who are routinely having the worst days of their lives when they interface with these different agencies, really for my entire career. I came to understand that this process in the criminal justice system involves an important variable, and that variable is the judge. Whether the judge causes people to be treated fairly as human beings and not numbers, whether victims are given an opportunity for meaningful input and time to speak, whether there's a rush to judgment out of a fear of caseload numbers denying justice, or equally problematic, whether justice is delayed so long that it becomes justice denied. So having appeared before what I viewed as very talented, ethical judges, and also some who I would do differently, I was inspired to apply for this position. My vision is to offer the voters a safe place to be heard in court, treated as individuals, and receive justice.
Thank you, Judge Carnicel.
Thank you.
Ms. Sellers.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Thank you to our hosts, Councilwomen Gums and Willis, and to our moderator, Ms. Proctor. My name is Tiffany Carter-Sellers, and I am a candidate for the Fulton County Superior Court. I'm originally from Paterson, New Jersey, and relocated to the South for undergraduate school. I am a proud HBCU graduate. I am a graduate of South Carolina State University, summa cum laude, with a bachelor's degree in political science, public administration. I then relocated to Athens, Georgia, to attend the University of Georgia School of Law, where I graduated cum laude. I am running to be your next Fulton County Superior Court judge because I believe Fulton County and its residents deserve judges who are efficient, effective, excellent, and most importantly, committed to Fulton. For the last after graduating law school 14 years ago, my husband and I relocated to South Fulton County, then unincorporated South Fulton, now the current city of South Fulton. And we've been here, lived here, served here, worked here ever since. I have worked in law firms exclusively located here in Fulton County. I have represented Fulton County bedrock organizations such as Grady, Marta, and the Housing Authority of the City of Atlanta. I have tried cases in magistrate court, state court, superior court, federal court. In 2017, I was honored and humbled to be appointed by the mayor of the city of South Fulton and to serve as South Fulton's Municipal Court's first chief judge, tasked with establishing the court for the third largest city in Fulton County in 40 days. And during my tenure, we processed 6,000 cases in 18 months with zero backlog. I managed a 1 budget Thank you. I managed a $1 million budget and at the end of the fiscal year reported a $200,000 surplus. Again, I am not only ready to do the hard work associated with being a Superior Court judge, I'm ready to do the heart work associated with being a court judge. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Sellers. And I think it's quite interesting that we have all female candidates. I'm not sure what that says, but there are no males seeking these positions. Let's begin with our very first question. How do you define injustice? What reforms do you support to increase access to justice for all? How do you fight for the indigent and underserved? And so let's start with Ms. Sellers.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the question. Injustice is really part of the reason why I'm running. When cases sit in the queue, as we call them, when judges have backlogs and inefficiency, that often creates injustice. And so it's not just about a numbers game, but when judges are being inefficient in terms of the management of their caseload, people sit in jail. People sit in jail for longer than they need to because judges are not effectively moving through their cases. Reforms that I seek, certainly the court that I'm looking to assume responsibility for currently has the largest and the highest complex criminal caseload of any superior courtroom in our county. And so the first reform would be to deal with the backlog, to get people, let them have their day in court, to reduce the number of defendants that are currently sitting in jail awaiting trial. And so that would be the first reform that I would seek to do. And a fight for the indigent. See, I did that in South Fulton. In South Fulton, we had, we established a program where every criminal defendant was afforded a public defender, regardless of whether or not they could pay. That is crucial and key, in my opinion, to justice, right? Everyone has the right to be represented excellently, and so that the process moves fairly. Thank you.
Judge Carnesal?
Thank you so much. Injustice takes many forms. It takes the forms of defendants who sit too long in jail awaiting trial. It takes the form of victims who wait for years to find out the resolution of a case where their family member was murdered. It takes many forms. As candidate Sellers is well aware, I was on the bench for 7 months prior to the COVID crisis, and I inherited the largest criminal caseload in Fulton County of complex criminal cases. I inherited 14 very complex murder cases that I immediately began to attack. I am the candidate with the experience of trying hundreds of felony cases who is comfortable calling in and moving complex cases with multiple defendants and complex charges. These are things that I'm equipped to handle. So not only did I attack the backlog as soon as I came into office, I also established a system for addressing new cases as well, so that we didn't simply fall into a hole with the new cases. We have 2 tracks in my courtroom, one for old cases, one for new cases. Speaking of indigent clients, what I've found is many people who are sitting in jail are not only indigent, but they've lost their attorneys. And so one thing that my staff does routinely, along with the attorneys assigned to my courtroom, is look for cases in which someone has been waiting for resolution of their case for years or even months, but because of their loss of an attorney have not been able to move forward. I routinely bring these people to court just to check on their status, check in with these defendants, and assign attorneys if their attorney has been lost. And I think it would shock you how often that happens. I'm very proud of several cases that we've resolved since I've been in my position. One involved a woman who was ultimately acquitted, who insisted on representing herself, who was charged with very serious charges, would have gone to prison for approximately 30 years had she been convicted. She was acquitted by a Fulton County juror because I brought
10 seconds.
Jury because I brought her in and tried that hard case. And she had been sitting in jail for years awaiting her trial in that case. So that's how we address injustice currently in that courtroom.
Thank you. Ms. Williams.
When I think about injustice, I think about a couple of different things. I think about my own experiences with my father being murdered when I was 7. And I think about what I felt like as a 7-year-old who justice was not done in her father's case. No little girl should have to feel that way. I think about my brother's situation when he was arrested and lost his opportunity to go into the United States military, specifically because he had a name that was like someone that they were looking for. And the police officer swore it was him, even though the description did not match. That he sat in jail for 4 or 5 days, awaiting for him to come before the judge, for the judge to say, well, this doesn't sound like you have the right person. When I think about injustice, I think about the people who walk our streets every single day in fear of what will or will not happen to them because of what's going on in our court system. So injustice takes a myriad of forms that can't be summed up in just 90 seconds. When I think about criminal justice reform, yes, it is absolutely something that we need. When I think about that, I think about the over-policing of our children, the school to prison pipeline, how our children are set up to fail from the very beginning. I think about the need for accountability courts. I think about diversion and treatment programs and how we need to expand funding for those and ensure that we are putting people in treatment programs who can be rehabilitated and not just using prison as an answer. When we talk about the underserved and how I fought for the underserved community, I fight day in and day out, and I have done so for the last 30 years of my life, working for people who didn't necessarily have the money to afford attorneys like myself. I'm a graduate of Howard University and Georgetown University, and so law school. And so with that being said, what I have had the privilege of doing is fighting for our community's safety as a prosecutor, fighting for defendants' rights as a defense attorney, fighting for families, fighting for husbands and wives, fighting for children in every single space of this community.
10 seconds.
I'm done.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Williams. Judge Reeder?
Thank you so much. And this is an interesting question because as a judge, it's a different situation than when you're a lawyer. When you're a lawyer, you advocate, right? And so when I was a lawyer, I worked for Atlanta Volunteer Lawyers Foundation for years and gave pro bono service through Atlanta Volunteer Lawyers Foundation. But as a judge, we're more independent. And so we have to find different ways to be able to manage that within the docket that we have. I started out in the criminal bench, and I had an incredible backlog by a one-time transfer of cases from 2 other judges' dockets. So I ended up with 100 cases all at the same time landing in my chambers. So that also meant with the DAs that were assigned to my courtroom and the public defenders that were assigned to my courtroom, all of a sudden got 100 new cases at the same time, in addition to the feeding of cases that come every month. We worked through that. I presided over 14 criminal jury trials in 2019. And to put that in perspective, there are 15 people that sit on the criminal bench, and I tried more than 12 of my colleagues. Then I got transferred to family law. And when I got transferred to family law, I chose to keep behavioral health treatment court because of the importance of what that court does in terms of helping people who are indigent and infirmed. We have a systemic problem with mental health in our county, and we have a systemic problem in the United States. And to be able to serve these people and to provide them an 18 to 24 month program where they can become stable, they can learn a job skill, and they can stable housing, helps our society, helps them, helps their family. When people come to courts, they're in crisis. They are in crisis no matter if they're a victim, if they're a defendant, if they're in a civil case or a family case. And it's my responsibility as your Superior Court judge to make sure that those people's crises are heard and resolved. So whatever the resolution is, they may move forward. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Now, Judge Osby.
All right, I'm unmuted. So when I think of injustice, I don't think of my courtroom at all, because I once said in a speech that I made that when I put that black robe on, all of my life, my problems go away, and I truly give everything to the case, and I try to make everything fair and honest and credible. However, that is not the case with the whole world or that we're in. We have racial profiling, we have all sorts of mental health issues, and the accountability courts can only do so much. I actually worked with the Clayton County Accountability Court getting it started, and I've done work and sat on the bench here in Fulton with the mental health court. And as a law clerk for the 2 Superior Court judges, I actually had the unique opportunity to work on 2 death penalty habeas cases that were divvied to them. And that obviously would be the most, the highest injustice I can imagine, is that if somebody who was wrongfully convicted was put to death. So that was a very, very serious time for us to look into those cases and make decisions and have new hearings and new trials to determine if they were unjustly treated before they came in front of us. And so I think that I would do absolutely anything and everything I could to make sure that all case loads were heard in the family law sector. You know, if things are waiting, those are families who are waiting on decisions to be able to see their children, to be able to receive any support or do anything of that nature. And those need to be moved quickly, as well as criminal cases, because we have people waiting in jail for trials. And I think that we should have the right to a speedy trial. So I would work very hard to additional hours just to make sure that all caseload was effectively and efficiently handled and dealt with. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Judge Harris?
Thank you. What is injustice? Injustice takes on so many different forms. When I think about injustice, I think about a number of things. First, I think about disallowing the opportunity to be heard. We have so many people that come through our courtrooms. We have litigants, we have families, we have victims, we have lawyers, we have small business owners. And in my courtroom, what I do and what I would continue to do as our next Fulton County Superior Court judge is to ensure that everyone that comes to court has an opportunity to be heard. As a judge, we are like almost like referees in a sense. We are not advocates for either side, but we do have a responsibility to listen to all of the sides of the story and render a ruling. That ruling is not necessarily going to make everybody happy. It may make one side happy, not the other side. It may make both sides unhappy. There are different ways that can all turn out. But when people leave my courtroom, they know, even if they are dissatisfied with the result, that they had the opportunity to be heard. Secondly, ill use of the wide range of discretion that we as judges have. We are mandated to follow the letter of the law, right? But in our jobs as judges, we do have a wide range of discretion. And that discretion needs to be wielded responsibly in a way that is sound. And when a judge takes the bench and misuses the wide range of discretion that we have, that is injustice, in my opinion. Slow resolution of cases. When a person is sitting in jail and sitting
10 seconds.
because their case is not being heard by the court, that is injustice. We must move our cases along. Poverty is not a crime.
Thank you. Ms. Kuhn?
As my colleagues have identified, stating what is injustice in 90 seconds or less is quite a challenge, but let me be very clear. Justice delayed is justice denied. There is no arguing with that. Injustice is in the eyes of the beholder. Something that any one of us think was just and fair is not going to have the same response to every member of our community. That is why I continue to be in contact with all parts of our community. We all need to unite together and make sure that everybody is treated fairly, with dignity, and with respect. Without that, we have injustice. As it relates to your question about how to help the indigent and the underserved, not everybody is in our courts because they're a criminal. I want to make that clear. Let's not forget about the civil clients. Half of Fulton County has civil dockets, okay? Half is criminal, half is civil, approximately. With COVID-19, we're going to have big problems. We have people sitting in jail. We need to be able to get people through the court system without sacrificing their need to be heard. I have an ethical obligation as a private attorney and advocate to balance the needs of my clients, and I have to balance those needs with society, the victims, and the wrongly accused. We have alternative measures in place, and I think judges have a responsibility to identify those alternative measures to all citizens, regardless of their ability to afford counsel. We have the accountability courts. We have on the civil side, we have arbitrations, mediations, things to help clients feel like they get their
10 seconds.
support. And it's for that I think I'm the best choice for judge, because I've been in a private attorney and I see some of the problems. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rabowski-Houston.
Well, injustice is actually defined as a lack of fairness or lack of justice or an unjust act or occurrence. I believe that my judicial philosophy will address any issue with respect to injustice in my courtroom, any instances, because I would pledge to be neutral, knowledgeable, and respectful. Neutral in that when I take the bench, I do not insert my personal feelings, my personal stances, my personal positions on any of the issues that are before me. To insert myself, that is unfair. That would be unjust. So that would not happen. I would be neutral. And then knowledgeable in that I have the experience and the knowledge from my legal and judicial experience to address the issues that are arising before me, to keep matters moving, to avoid delays, and to ensure that fair trials are occurring. That I am holding both defense and prosecution, both petitioner and respondent, to the same set of standards and the same set of rules that are there in order to provide for a fair trial. Then, respect. I wholeheartedly came onto the bench believing that people are entitled to an opportunity to be heard, that they deserve and are entitled to the judge's undivided attention, and that they deserve to be treated with respect. Because in reality, oftentimes the perception of injustice is there because people have walked out of the courtroom and they're feeling as if they haven't been heard. How could they possibly have been fair when there's no way they heard what I said? They were doing something else. They weren't paying attention. I didn't feel like I was able to get my point across. It is much easier, and
10 seconds.
And I have experienced it, to listen to someone, give them your undivided attention, and then them accept what your ruling was, knowing that they had been heard.
Thank you. I now want to bring in our YouTube audience. We already have a couple of questions just to engage everyone. This question says, how would you plan on addressing the repeat offender issues here in Fulton County? And let's begin with Judge Reeder.
So it is definitely a huge problem. And I think part of this is that trying to get to people early. And this is not just the judge. And, you know, we're an independent branch of the government, but that doesn't mean that we can't hold hands with the community. And so we all have to work together. And I think that's already started with the South Fulton Coalition and the Buckhead Coalition working together to start making some changes in Fulton County. From my perspective, and with the way Fulton County Superior Court is set up, which was set up far before I got here, that there are non-complex felonies are handled by magistrate judges that are elevated. Complex felonies are handled by your sitting Superior Court judges. And so by the time they get to me, there's been such a serious felony that it's no longer a revolving door issue. So I think what we need to do is try to work as a community and as a bench and with legislatures and with the executive branches of our government, and try to work together to effectively try to get kids when they're younger and try to let people know. We've got a serious gang problem. I know DA Howard and Ms. Willis talked about that on, was that Tuesday? I can't remember what day it was. But we've got a serious gang problem in Fulton County, and it needs to be attacked, and it needs to be attacked by all of us in a united force.
Thank you. Ms. Williams.
Thank you. So the punishment must fit the crime. What we also know is that most of the crime that is committed in Fulton County is committed by a group of the same people in general. And so what we have to look at is the cause of what's causing people to commit crime rather. But then we also have to look at what is happening when they come into the court system. It is a sad truth that oftentimes people say, if you want to commit a crime, go commit it in Fulton, because the judges are lax and they'll let you out, you'll get probation, etc. So we've got to make sure that we are changing that persona and that thought process in our community. So when we talk about a lot of the crime that's been committed, it's not just those non-complex cases that my opponent referenced. Burglary is a complex case, and that is something that comes before the Superior Court judges. Armed robbery, drug cases, as far as drug dealing cases, all of those come before the Superior Court judge. So what we've got to do is we've got to make sure that we're looking at treatment programs, we're looking at diversion programs, that we're looking at accountability court. And where we can put people into those particular courts or those particular programs, then yes, we absolutely need to do so. However, the sad truth is that there are just some people who those programs are not going to work for. And so what we have to do is make sure that we are appropriately sentencing people, not unfairly sentencing people, but that we are dispelling this rumor and this myth that you can come to Fulton County and commit whatever crime that you want to and nothing's going to happen to you. And if we look at most of the crime that's happening in Fulton County, it's slighter crimes, it's thefts, it's burglaries, it's armed robberies.
10 seconds.
Things that are affecting us as everyday citizens and that we need to put a stop to with our repeat offenders.
Thank
Am I allowed
you.
to rebuttal that since she talked about me and her response?
Sure.
I told you I presided over 14 criminal felony jury trials in 2019, and there are mandatory sentences for those when a Fulton County jury finds them guilty. I presided over 400 criminal pleas. Those are all public record, and you can see my record, and you can see that I'm taking very seriously the crime that's going on in Fulton County. And I'm also taking very seriously the ability to be able to preside over an accountability court and try to find those accountability issues when they fit the facts. Facts are important, and you need a judge who looks at every single fact and makes sure that they apply the law to the facts of that particular matter.
Thank you. Ms. Sellers, can you talk about the issue of repeat offenders?
Yes, thank you so much for the question. I happen to believe that you address the repeat offender problem at the source, at the core. And that is one of the reasons why my campaign spiel is that I'm 100% committed to Fulton. We've got to address why people are committing certain crimes, right? We've got to address why people are committing certain crimes. This is part of the reason why in the city of South Fulton, I started the Be What You Can See youth shadowing and youth mentoring program in our court, so that we can expose youths to careers in the law, right? They can interact with police officers in a really in a non-confrontational way. And it can oftentimes help divert some of the bad decisions that they make, right? Also, it's important that you have a judge that's in tune and connected to the community. You got to get involved in community organizations. You've got to be a part of what's going on. You've got to serve here, right? In the community, have a pulse on the community so that you understand the resources that are available, right? I think that we unfortunately have a situation where we have jurists who are not involved in
10 seconds.
We've got to address that in order to really talk about how to address repeat offenders. Thank you.
Thank you. Judge
Am I allowed to rebut that, or will I be given extra time given that she's addressing my community experience?
Well, we were just about to call on you.
Okay.
Go right ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. So given my background prosecuting serious violent felonies, I understand the importance of triaging all cases, including repeat offenders. So you would look at a repeat offender who is forging checks, which does come to us after they commit enough crimes, differently than a repeat offender who's committed sex offenses or domestic violence. So there are some types of cases that call for different punishments. It is critically important to address underlying causes of many crimes. And part of what is so important when sentencing a defendant is to look at their background. There's an important program in Fulton County called My Journey Matters. It's not my program, but I've referred people there. And it's true. It's important to look at the background of a criminal defendant. And while you are sentencing them to incarceration, if that's appropriate, it's important to include terms of their probation because they will get out. Most of the offenders that I see are youthful offenders. So unless they receive sentences of life without parole, they will return to the community at some point. I view it as critically important to give defendants split sentences so that they receive probation after appropriate and important incarceration to remove them from society. And during that time, they know that people are aware of their offenses. They know that they're accountable for their offenses. And they know that it's much easier to get revoked on your probation than it is to be convicted of a new offense. So I think that's critically important. Then in terms of these youthful offenders, as we're looking at the interventions that could change their lives, they need to be trauma-informed interventions. I mentioned previously my experience with DFACS, and I'll tell you now that I see many criminal defendants who've been victims of crimes their whole lives. I see many criminal defendants who can't read or write, with developmental disabilities and with mental health problems, to say the least of substance abuse issues. So I think all those things are important when you're looking at repeat offenders.
Thank you. Judge Reader,
Yes, ma'am.
did you talk about repeat offenders?
You asked about the revolving door. I've already answered this question. Yes,
We're
ma'am.
ready for the next post. So that's going to be Ms. Kuhn. Ms. Kuhn, we're going to go change the order up just a bit. Can you respond to our repeat offender question?
Yes, Madam Proctor. There is not and cannot be a bright line approach without an understanding of the underlying facts of each defendant. Otherwise, my position as your future judge would be to rubber stamp every case, and that would be an absolute injustice. As my colleagues have said, you must look into the community, you must look into the facts and circumstances of each case. We also need to continue community outreach, catch these kids when they're younger, connect them with their local pastor, reverend, rabbi, community center. Let them feel like they are important, they are not lost, and they are not a number. Without that, you cannot curb repeat offenders. A lot of these kids are just never been diagnosed with mental illness. There are parts of our community that refuse to accept mental illness, and it's shoved under the rug. I see it in my civil family law cases all the time. I've had clients say, oh no, we're not going to go get our child diagnosed. And I say, you might really want to consider this. So we have parents that are doing disservices for their children. We don't need judges, prosecutors to also continue that disservice. They're entitled to a fair shake at life. It's hard to say, again, unless you get into the facts. I've not been a sitting criminal court judge, so that's the essence of my answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hrabowski Houston?
With respect to repeat offenders, I believe that you have to get to the root of what is going on with respect to the particular offender. And that does require a more in-depth examination of exactly what is going on with that particular offender, because there's no use in applying the same, if they're a repeat offender, the same exact sentence or remedy and expecting a different result. That's the very definition of insanity. You have to look at what it is that is causing this. And as has been mentioned, is it mental health? Is it, is it drugs? Now, certainly there are circumstances wherein the crime and the repetition and the investigation has been done and incarceration for a lengthy period is necessary, absolutely. But when we get there, it needs to be after having gone through that in-depth examination in terms of sentencing reports and investigation of what has been done before, what the background is, what's the community support. We have so many resources within the courthouse and definitely within the community that I don't know that we take complete advantage of. I don't necessarily know that a lot of people know about them. And I think that that is part of the education that we have to do in order to address some of that. So the shorter answer is that this is not a one size fits all problem. You won't have a one-size-fits-all solution for that particular problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Judge Harris.
What is most astonishing for me daily on the bench as a judge, watching over these criminal cases, are the numbers of people that come through that have absolutely nobody in the gallery standing up for them. You'll have a young man or a young woman out the side door in handcuffs, right, for a felony crime, and there is nobody there supporting them. We go through the rap sheets and we look into the eyes of the person that's standing in front of us, and we have to make the decision about what to do. This goes back to the judicial discretion that I discussed in my earlier answer. What do? You're 17 years old, you're standing in front of me, you have absolutely no community support, you don't have a mother here, a grandmother here, nobody, all right? You've got one or two felony hits, maybe for a nonviolent crime on your rap sheet. You have not finished high school, you dropped out in 10th grade, and you may have some mental health issues, all right? And now you've done it again, whatever it is. If it is a crime that is nonviolent, then there's a crossroad decision to be made. You've done this
10 seconds.
Or do we give you a chance or do we not? It's a case-by-case basis decision, and we have to elect good people that have reasonable judgment in order to make these decisions.
Thank you, Judge Harris. Judge Osby?
Yes, thank you. So basically, we have a big problem, as Judge Reeder said, with gangs in the whole state, but definitely Fulton County as a whole. And I had the opportunity to go and sit with the GBI and get some information and some on the new punishments for those, as well as how they're going about trying to limit or reduce the gangs and the gang problems. The biggest problem that I'm seeing, though, is that these young children are inducted into the gangs without their even being knowledgeable by their older siblings or other people in the community, and they start a life of crime early on. So I think working on fixing that problem, and rather than band-aiding it with trying to punish them in the courts later, is a big deal. But aside from the gang issue, the criminals that come before us, we rely on their criminal history, and that is what you look, as Judge Leffridge or Judge Harris said, is that you have to look at that and really take knowledge of it, and then also taking into account that mental health issue, or is it a drug issue? If they are not a good candidate for that, then we can't put them through there, and they need to be punished. But I think overall, the Fulton County message of being able to come here as a criminal and commit a crime has to be changed as a whole, without doing any injustice to anyone at all. So that's how I feel on that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And I'm seeing a couple of questions here about transparency and accountability, so I'm going to combine the two. One is from the YouTube audience, which says, judges' specific performance is not usually transparent to the average citizen. How do you feel about having a more public judicial scorecard? And I'm going to couple that with this question that was submitted previously. Would you favor or oppose a system in which all sentencing decisions were routinely reported in local newspapers or online publications, indexed by the name of the judge? Why or why not? And let's
Madam
begin.
Proctor?
Yes.
Madam Proctor, how much time for each candidate on this question?
I would imagine it's 90 seconds is the normal time. But the questions are very similar. We're talking about accountability of judges. So let's begin with, let's try Ms. Rabowski-Houston.
With respect to the public scorecard and the sentences being published and things like that, the reality is the courts are open right now. Any member of the public, if they wanted to come out and watch a judge handle cases, the courtrooms are completely open and accessible. Personally, as I've gone through handling cases, you almost, whether you ask for it or not, you get feedback from litigants, whether it's asked for or not. You get feedback from litigants. And I have, again, learned some valuable lessons from that feedback. I don't know that I would necessarily have a problem with the public scorecard. Again, knowing that the courts are open anyway. You can come in, you can listen to whatever case, you can hear me rule, and all of that's open, and you're not prevented from doing that. So I don't know that I would necessarily be against that per se, because that's already possible. That information can absolutely be gathered.
Ms. Kuhn?
Yes, regarding the transparency, the courtroom is open, and with the use of technology, I've seen judges with the CV-19 posting on Zoom and then putting their courtroom on the live feed for YouTube and then closing it. So that is important. I think a lot of people should walk into a courtroom just to experience. As it relates to publishing defendants in the newspaper, I have to say that I'm pretty opposed to public shaming. I know that we've talked about serious defendants, and there are serious defendants, but let's talk about the person who made a mistake once, got a DUI. You want that person to lose their job and the family to suffer? I don't think so. That's not what Fulton County needs. Also on the transparency issue, Fulton County, unlike other counties in Georgia, you actually can see the docket online, but you can't pull up the actual pleadings. I think it would be helpful for society and citizens who are interested in a case to be able to pull up those pleadings and see if there's something that they want to go participate in. Judges' scorecards, judges typically tend to not be liked, and that's part of the job. I've heard from lawyers, why do you want to be a judge? Nobody likes a judge. And then that's how it goes. And that's just part of the job. And part of transparency is also show up on time. And it's not just the 9-to-5 job. You get the job done. You get people through the system. Thank you.
Thank you. Judge Harris.
I absolutely love it when people come down to court from the public, because they get a chance to see all of the different things that we're hearing, all of the parts, the GCIC, the public defender or the defense lawyer, the prosecutor, the police officers, the witnesses. When people come down to court, they see the full picture. A public scorecard, while I don't have a problem with it per se for the reason why it is asked, does not tell the full story of what we see in court. So I think there's a danger to that, because it's a checkoff with no basis in fact, in terms of all of what we hear. We use all of our senses. I do. When a person comes to court, I am using every bit of information that's being given to me to make the right decision. I'm even thinking about, is the hair standing up on my arms while we're talking? Or do I look in your eyes and I see that you're a good risk? And these are the kinds of things that don't show up on a scorecard. Those are the kinds of things that when people meet people, you have to get a sense of. So, I understand that the basis of the question, I appreciate transparency, but I would be concerned that it doesn't tell the full story.
Thank you. Judge Osby?
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm unmuted now. Sorry about that. So, I often invite people down to my courtroom, and it is always open. And all courtrooms, I believe most judges want people in there. While that's not really feasible for anybody to just take off work to go watch court, that's understandable as well. So I do think that as long as we had a program that was fair and equal for the data and statistics that they were gathering, and it was computed into percentages equally and done properly rather than miscommunicating data, I think that it would be a great thing for the public. Again, I think a lot of the cases, you don't understand how they come through, but so long as the data had some depth to it, I think it could possibly be accomplished. I don't know the answer as to how to make that happen, but I think it's possible.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Sellers, judicial scorecard.
Yes, thank you so much for the question, Ms. Proctor. As a municipal court judge, routinely, there are tons of people in municipal courts, right? I had dockets of 200 people. People are just sitting in there watching. Families come, everybody comes. And so personally, I actually really like the transparency. It keeps me accountable. What I think is important is voters elect judges. Yes, the governor does get the right to appoint judges to fill vacancy, but ultimately judges are responsible and responsive to you. And so it is absolutely imperative, in my opinion, that the public participate in that by scoring or judging how we're doing our job. And if we're not doing a good job, you should let us know at the voting box. And I have absolutely no problem with any of that. Interestingly, when you talk about transparency and the courts being open, there is no really great side. There's no good side to this coronavirus thing, except for the fact that it has made us incredible. It has advanced us in terms of the judiciary at least 20 years in the future. Courts are now being broadcast on YouTube. Court sessions are being broadcast live. And so there are ways and opportunities that I think that courts can be even more transparent and accessible. As a judge who's responsive to the community, I have zero problem with anyone coming in, knowing what we're doing and watching and observing.
Thank you, Judge Carnesel.
Thank you for the question. As it turns out, since the COVID crisis, I was the first Fulton County Superior Court judge to take pleas fully remotely and run that on YouTube. So I certainly appreciate accountability to the community. I think it's important for the public to get to see what a judge is doing. Similarly, when defendants are facing very serious charges, typically family comes to watch, interested parties come to watch, victims come to watch. And it's important to me at the end of a court hearing that involves interested citizens that what they've seen is an engaged judge who understands the issues, who understands the law, and who is interested in hearing the facts and the evidence. The truth in Fulton County is that cases go to grand jury, typically within 14 days, with receiving no investigation whatsoever, always indicted within a month. And so we often learn that the case that gets assigned to us is not the same case we see at the end of the day. So scorecards might be valuable, but they would have to provide context. And this is something that we've discussed at the Superior Court level for some time. So a scorecard would need to reflect several things, and I may be the prime example of someone who could be a victim of a scorecard. You've heard Ms. Sellers say, I have the most cases on the criminal docket. Where's the context? I have the most criminal cases on the criminal docket by 20 last time I checked, in addition to the fact that the vast majority of those were inherited from 2 previous judges. Like Judge Reeder, I had the same experience of suddenly receiving 100 cases overnight because of a shift in assignment of cases. So the cases would certainly have to provide context on any scorecard of whether there was a reduction by the state, if there were other mitigating factors. And at that point, I would be perfectly satisfied to have scorecards for judges.
Thank you, Judge Reeder.
I don't know how much more I have to add, but I will say that, like Ms. Sellers had said, this COVID-19 is, and Judge Carnesel talked about, COVID-19 has put us into a whole new world, and trying to, I love the word pivot. Like, I think the word was probably about to go out of the dictionary and now people use it 20 times a day. But it's allowed us to pivot and to be able to do things remotely that are going to really help the citizens of Fulton County. Most citizens don't have any cross with the Fulton County Superior Courts, or if they do through family division. And I'm in the family division now, and we are using Zoom, and it's been such a great thing. We were up and running the first day of the emergency order. We were able to efficiently go through 30-day and 60-day conferences that Ms. Hobrowski-Houston, Judge Hobrowski-Houston, apologize, does. And we in FAM 1 are talking about doing 30 days and 60 days by Zoom going forward, which will save people money. It'll be economical. It'll be time-wise. People won't have to get off work to come down to the courthouse. I do want to talk a little bit about, and the Superior Court judges have been talking about this scorecard since I've been on the bench since November 2018, and I think for years before that. And there are numbers that are published, but the courtrooms are open. They are always open. My courtroom is open. 4B is always there. You always can come down. You can always see what we're doing. We'll be as transparent with everything we're allowed to. I ran out of time.
Thank you. Ms. Williams.
Thank you. So I agree that the courtrooms are always open for any citizen to come down there, but the fact of the matter is that's generally not practical for the average citizen, because that means that they have to take off work, come downtown, park, or take MARTA, whatever the case may be. So I am in complete favor of a public scorecard. Now, I think that there's a difference between the courtroom being open and the public scorecard. What I understand that the public scorecard would do is show exactly how judges are handling cases, how they are sentencing people. Now, why is that important? It's important because we need to make sure that we're safeguarding against disproportionate sentencing. I mean, the fact of the matter is that all judges have sentencing discretion, as some of the other candidates have said. And so what we need to make sure is that just like judges are holding litigants and the defendants, the plaintiffs, the victims, everyone else and the lawyers accountable, judges need to be held accountable. And so what should not be a secret is what sentencing someone is getting, and what should not be difficult to find out, because in order to find out what sentence someone got, you have to literally go down to the clerk's office, pull the sentencing or the disposition sheet. Again, that does not give the appearance of transparency in the courtroom. And frankly, that's one of the issues that we have in our court system now, is that people don't trust our court system. People don't trust our judges. People feel like our judges are out of touch and that they don't know anything about the community except for when the community comes into the courtroom. So second to that, reporting sentences in the paper. I agree with Ms. Rabowski-Houston. We have to make sure that there are some safeguards in there, but I do agree that it is important for the public to know what is going on in the courtroom and in the courthouse, and not to have to go through hoops and leaps, all kinds of stuff to find that out.
All right, thank you. Our next question, I look forward to hearing the answers. It says, please describe one instance in which you faced an ethical dilemma and how did you resolve it? Let's begin with Judge Reeder, ethical dilemma.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to think, and that was not something that I think that when we sentence people on with criminal felonies and they're sentenced to very, very long terms, because of mandatory sentencing, or alternatively because they were found guilty, and that the facts may not really have, in my mind, filled what the mandatory sentence would be, and that may not be the best thing for that person, but I don't have any control over that. That is an ethical disturbance for me. When you've got to sentence somebody to life without the possibility of parole, and they're very young, and the crime, it's a 3 strikes you're out issue, and it's crime that may not necessarily, because of the 3 crimes, they may not necessarily fit what you as a citizen would think would be a crime that would result in life without the possibility of parole. And the jurors don't know that when they are deliberating. So,
okay.
But that's my job, and that's what I have to do, and that's what the legislature's decided. And so that's the legislature's decision to do that.
Thank you, Judge. Ms. Williams, can you describe an instance when you faced an ethical dilemma?
Absolutely.
And how did you resolve it?
So I was a prosecutor for nearly 10 years. And during the course of that time, I prosecuted everything from drug cases to murder cases, sex crimes, and everything in between. There was a case that I handled, which was a murder case. And I did not believe that the defendant was guilty of murder. In fact, the facts show that he was not guilty of murder. There was a co-defendant, and every single witness that I interviewed and every single piece of evidence that I reviewed said that the other person was the shooter, and that the defendant, who was also accused, had absolutely nothing to do with the murder. He just happened to be in the car. And this was a spur of the moment thing, so it wasn't a party to a crime situation. But this person was charged with murder. So I went to my supervisors, talked with them about it and how I did not think that this person should be charged with murder. I did not think that that was the appropriate charge based on the facts and based on my interviews with all of the witnesses. I actually went to the jail and spoke with that particular defendant in the presence of his attorney. That person had agreed to testify on behalf of the state against the other defendant. So all of the information I had suggested that this person, murder was not the appropriate charge. What I ended up doing was telling my supervisors that I ethically cannot try this case because I did not believe that this particular defendant, who was a 17-year-old kid who literally shot a gun up in the air and not anywhere near where the defendant was or anything like that. This was after the shooting had taken place and they were down the street, so nowhere even near the scene. And because of that, I opted not to try the case. And with that being said, I actually left my job because it was just that crucial for me.
Wow. All right, Judge Osby.
All right, sorry, unmuted. So obviously the most, oh, wait, hold on. I'm unmuted, correct? You can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Just
Okay, great. So the most tough ethical, well, not tough, but the most drastic ethical decision to make as a judge, a sitting judge, is whenever you have a situation where it could be a recusal need, where you feel that there's a conflict and you would not be able to make a very fair and impartial decision. So I've had that happen just by knowing the accused and recuse myself from that case. But also, I think that really the biggest ethical issues, I try to keep everything personal out of the courtroom entirely. But when you're the victim of a crime and you're having that crime come in front of you, it crosses your mind. So you really have to look and remind yourself that this is not the same. This is a new person, a whole new set of facts and things like that. So that would be the only small instance I can think of where, you might take a second to wonder and rethink your decision and remind yourself that every case is unique and each defendant is unique in their set of history and the crime itself.
thank you. Judge Harris.
I had a situation, maybe it was, I don't know if it was earlier this year or last year, but I had a motion hearing and I had a young man that was in front of me. And it was a what we call a motion to suppress. And we were going through the motion. It was a lengthy motion. We were probably on hour 3 or 4 of the motion hearing when evidence came out from the defendant that let me know that I knew his father. And so how we solved that was I had everybody immediately come up to the bench for a conversation. And I told them, I think based on what I just heard, that I might know this young man's father. We are 3.5 hours into this hearing, but I don't feel comfortable moving forward with it. I believe I have to recuse myself from the case. And we all agree that that's what should happen. But yeah, that's a dilemma that we sometimes come up upon as judges, that we have maybe not a relationship with the person that's in front of us, but maybe a related relationship with somebody else.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Rabowski Houston.
I was doing a protective order hearing and I had gone through the entire hearing. The petitioner was an elderly woman who had been brought in by one of her daughters, and the respondent was actually another of the daughters. And we had gone through everything. I had issued the order. However, just even before she came up, before her case was called, and then during the time when she was up presenting her case and we were going through, it was just something about the relationship between she and the daughter that was there with her. And once I ruled, provided her with a protective order, she was good to go. But my training in domestic violence as a prosecutor, while being on the bench, it just kept signaling to me, there is something going on here, even with this daughter. And so my ethical dilemma was, I can't go and pull her to the side and ask her what's wrong and have this type of ex parte conversation with her and do investigation. I can't do that. But because of what I noticed, I was able to ask a deputy in the courtroom to check with her. She was very frail as well, and check with her, see if she needed anything to eat. We had snacks in the back to get her something to eat if she needed, and see how she was doing. She got snacks and she started to talk to them. And she revealed that she was not being treated very well. And we ended up doing a wellness check, and well, not we, but the DA's office sent out a victim's advocate wellness check. She was being abused. There was no food in the home, and all that was actually addressed with the resources that we have in the courthouse.
Wow, thank you. Ms. Kuhn.
Yes, I just also want to make it clear that ethics do not always align with morals. And I think that is when we actually get into really tough situations. As a private attorney, I've been practicing for 15 years. I have several ethical obligations, and it's not just to my client. A lot of people make that mistake thinking that everything for the client, that's not true. I have an ethical obligation to these judges that are sitting here before us, and an ethical obligation to the Georgia Bar. Because I practice litigation and I'm in court on a fairly regular basis, I get into sticky situations when my client knowingly puts up false evidence. This creates a problem. I've had clients falsify documents and I've known it. I've had clients who have illegally recorded conversations and I know it. And that would be fantastic to use for my client. I'm an advocate for an individual, but I am not allowed to breach my ethics to the tribunal. And when that has happened, and I have to be very private about this, I ask the judge for a recess. The judges are typically very gracious in that. I pull my client into the hallway and I say, listen, we have one of two things. One, you either go and correct the record, and then we get into some discussion about how I work for them and not the judge. It's always an interesting conversation. Or I need an emergency continuance, and I need to tell the court that I need an emergency motion to withdraw. Now, I've not had to do the emergency motion to withdraw. I typically have very good client control, and I'm very clear, you cannot violate my ethics. I will not lose my license for you. So it can be difficult. I'm not sat as a judge, so I don't have any experience with the judicial ethics, but I'm certainly familiar with the Judicial Code of Conduct. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Sellers.
Thank you. Very, very interesting question. And I can recall a situation when I was presiding as a judge. I was getting pressure politically to rule in a case in a particular way. And the way that I resolved that was very simple. I remembered my commitment to the community, that I don't work for one political side or the other, that ultimately my job is to call it fair, to be a fair and impartial judge, to judge the evidence as I see it and let the chips fall where they may. And so I did that. Yeah, I did that.
Okay, thank you. Judge Carnesel. Muted, you're muted.
I think I muted and then unmuted. Thank you. So I faced these issues as a practicing lawyer and as a new judge, of course. As the prosecutor, the ethical obligation was really to do the right thing, to charge people where there was sufficient evidence. And of course, time and time again, whether it was interviewing a victim or just looking into the evidence in the case, I learned that either the charges were incorrect or modifications needed to be made, or rarely, but sometimes a person was innocent and falsely accused. So those were issues that came up for me as a prosecutor. Typically as a judge, there are ethical issues that you deal with every day. And ultimately, it's pretty easy because as judges, the public counts on us to be wise and do the right thing. And for a judge, doing the right thing is following the law. So one of the other candidates referenced the difficulty of not engaging in the trial as one of the lawyers. I had the misfortune of having judges in the past who got involved in my case, attempted to help one side or the other, assisted with evidence, things of that nature. And my commitment is never to do that. My commitment is to follow the law, let the litigants litigate, and make sure everyone is following their ethical obligations. It comes up most often in criminal court in terms of arguments about discovery. And the thing to remember is Superior Court judges, we don't just try cases. We hear motions, we move cases along, we hear guilty pleas, and there are frequent arguments about discovery and what's been turned over and what should have been turned over. I'm well equipped to deal with those issues because of my hundreds of felony cases that I've handled. And on a daily basis, we're faced with issues of requiring the state to turn things over that they may not want to turn over. And there's debates about that. So daily we deal with ethical issues. And at the end of the day, you do what's legal, you follow the law.
All right, thank you. And so our next question, I'm going to go out on a limb here. It's coming from the live audience, our YouTube audience, and it's making an assumption that you're familiar with a Senate bill. And so if you aren't, I guess you would just deal with the subject itself. But are any of the candidates in support of Senate Bill 402, bonds and conditions for unsecured judicial release for a person on their own recognizance? Let's begin with Judge Osby.
Hi there. So I think I'm reading the question here as well. So the own recognizance or signature bond is what we oftentimes call that. There's two instances where that can happen, and that can be at your warrant level, which could be overnight where you're calling the judge on a video screen such as we are here. And it could be also in that first appearance hearing that they would go to if they didn't get a signature bond at that level. So signature bonds should never be given in any sort of felony case, of course, but in the own recognizance issue, I don't think that it could be determined at the warrant level. I think you have to be in front of the judge, and the judge needs to use their discretion and understand the facts, the limited facts that are in front of you at that point in time. You're not having an evidentiary hearing, but it is a probable cause hearing. And some of these recognizance could have been miscalculated. But again, I think everyone needs to have some accountability to come back to court. So I look at all of those factors to make sure and use my discretion to determine whether or not they're able to come back. But on any sort of a heavy crime, there's no way I would be in favor of signature bonds.
Okay, thank you. Judge Harris? You're muted. There you go. Oh, she free me. There you go.
The question, I want to make sure I understand the question. Is the question asking if we are in favor or opposed to a particular legislation?
That's correct. Senate Bill 402.
That's what the judicial canons allow us to do.
I cannot answer that question. I'm prohibited as a sitting judge and as a judicial candidate to offer a substantive opinion to that particular question. It's not that I don't have a personal opinion, because I'm a person and I have thoughts, but I am prohibited from answering that question ethically, and so I have to bow out of that particular question.
Okay, and that is a question from our live audience, so we will just go ahead and scratch that question and move on. So I had a question. In many instances, defense attorneys strategically donate money to various judges' campaigns. How can you remain objective when that same defense attorney who donated thousands of dollars to your campaign steps in your courtroom? Let's begin with Judge Reeder.
So this goes back to the ethics questions. So, I have an ethical obligation to abide by the judicial rules of Georgia Code of Judicial Conduct. And so everybody is treated the same and on the same footing in my courtroom, or the courtroom that I oversee. It's not my courtroom, it's the people's courtroom. Whether or not somebody's donated to my campaign or not donated to my campaign. So there are there are lots of lawyers from all different walks of life. There are prosecutors, there are defense attorneys, there are family lawyers, there's civil lawyers that all contribute to campaigns or not. And whether they contributed to mine or somebody else's, they're still going to get the same fair shake in my courtroom. And the people that are supporting me, that are listed on my website, that are a multitude of DAs and criminal defense attorneys and family attorneys and civil attorneys that come from all different places, and they're supporting me because I'm fair and because I do that, and because I have to take the responsibility to protect the public and to be impartial and to make the hard decisions. And everybody's going to know they got a fair shake, even if I ruled against them.
Thank you.
I don't make the facts.
Ms. Williams? Oh, you're muted.
No, I was waiting for you to say my name. I'm sorry. So let me just be very clear and transparent in this space. I am the underdog in this race, right? People have told me I am absolutely crazy for trying to take on an incumbent. And that has also made it more difficult for me to raise money, because I'm not raising money from that lawyer pool, which is where most people's money comes from. If you look at my disclosures and if you look at the money that I've raised, it has been from citizens. It has been from people in this community who know me, some who don't know me, people who are just sick and tired really of the status quo. And so I think we always have to be very careful when we have a judge who most of their money comes from lawyers who appear before them, because there is the possibility of impropriety, or there is the possibility of someone leaning one way or another because someone wrote them a $2,800 check. So I think that in all cases, we have to make sure, and that's part of why we have the public finance rules, right? The public disclosure rules to see who gives money and who doesn't give money. It's important that we remain fair in all instances. And with that being said, what we've got to make sure that we're doing is ensuring that our judges remain fair and impartial, that our judges remain those neutrals who are calling balls and strikes in the courtroom, regardless if somebody wrote them a $2,800 check or not, and they just happen to be before them, appearing, handling a case before them.
Thank you. Ms. Sellers.
Sorry, I'm on a laptop and I tried to unmute and hit my.
I want to make sure that I can respond to that, because I think that it seems, I'm sorry, Ms. Sellers, I apologize, but I just, my opponent seems to have been saying that I'm unethical because I'm getting donations from lawyers. And I want to make clear that that's not at all true, and it's not factual, and we need to base things on facts. People can come to my courtroom and they can see me.
Judge Reeder, I did not hear her call your name.
Okay.
So,
thank you.
yes, ma'am. All right, let's go, Ms. Sellers.
Yes, thank you. Certainly, a variety of people can donate to your campaign, but this is when I think that the community, this is when I think that your commitment to the community is most important, right? Because when you realize that this job is really one of service, and you approach it from that perspective, then you understand that it doesn't matter who donated money to your campaign. You've got to call it fair, because the community is depending on you. The community is depending on you to be that fair judge. The community is depending on you to be unbiased. The community is depending on you to protect them, right? And so I think that, naturally lawyers give money to judicial campaigns. I mean, it's a fact of life. I'm certain every candidate has had a lawyer give money to their campaign. But I think that when the community recognizes that you are ultimately committed to them, and that the money is simply used so that you can get your message of commitment out to the people who need to hear it, then it's okay. Thank you.
Judge Carnesal, thank you.
Thank you very much. It's not just donations that call this into question. It's the fact that lawyers know each other. So in my experience sitting on the bench, I routinely have attorneys come before me who know me from my previous career as a prosecutor. Some know me from my previous jobs in government, but they know what to expect from me. Now, someone sitting in the audience might see them stand up and, hey, congratulations, shake my hand, congratulations on your appointment, or even talk at the bench for a moment. But what they'll also see is that everyone is treated fairly and equally under the law. And this just brings me back to the point about ethics. At the end of the day, the issue for a judge is whether they will follow the law. I understand how the system works. I understand elections. This probably is a good time to cue the jokes about our inability to fundraise during the COVID crisis, but I won't make one because the COVID crisis is too serious. But at the end of the day, it just is incumbent upon each judge to hear the litigants before them, to treat everyone fairly and follow the law, regardless of whether they used to work with someone, used to litigate against someone and can't stand them, or have, previous knowledge of an attorney.
Thank you. Ms. Kuhn.
Ethics is what you do when no one's looking. That is the key point here. Justice is not for sale. People who know me know that I won't even speak to a judge when the other attorney's not present, even if it's friendly conversation, because I don't want my case to be jeopardized. Judge Watson White, may he rest in peace, when he was on the bench, he had a very excellent approach. He would not speak to lawyers about personal conversations because he did not want to give the look of impropriety. And if you wanted to have a conversation with him, it was in chambers and it better never be about a case. And I think that that applies here. Justice isn't for sale. If you donated to my campaign, great. Again, it goes to transparency. The financial disclosures were due today. I filed mine. There are a lot of people that have not. Thank you.
Thank you. Judge Harris.
And without bias.
Judge, can you start over? You were clipped there in the beginning.
Sure, yep. I took an oath to follow the law, to uphold the law and offer rulings fairly and without bias. And quite simply, I take my oath very seriously. So it's not a problem. Not at all.
Thank you. Ms. Rabowski Houston?
It wouldn't be a problem for me either. At this point, anyone who has supported me already knows me and knows that them donating to my campaign would have absolutely no bearing on any rulings or how they were treated once they walked into my courtroom. That's probably why they support me in the first place. Now, justice in my courtroom cannot be purchased. You still get the very same judicial philosophy, whether you support me or not. I'm going to be neutral, knowledgeable, and respectful.
Thank you. Judge Osby.
Yes, ma'am. So basically, I think that's why we have the Ethics Commission and the disclosures, as well as the limitations of what you can receive. But at the same time, if someone's just simply supporting you, as a judge, I don't feel that I would ever treat anybody different, litigants or lawyers. And so any sort of donation to my campaign is quite welcome. However, it's not going to help you get anything different. The lawyers are the messengers for the case, and the case is what I look at, not the lawyer.
Thank you. We have had such a lively discussion. The time has slipped away. And so with that, it is really time for closing statements. Let's begin with Ms. Sellers. 90 seconds to close. Thank you all so much for being here, and our YouTube audience has been very engaged. We appreciate everyone's time. And again, we want to remind you to make sure that you go out and vote on June 9th. Ms. Sellers?
Thank you, Ms. Proctor. And again, thank you to the hosts, Councilwomen Willis and Gums, as well as the Cedar Grove Community Association. Thank you for this important opportunity for us to get our message out to voters. Again, my name is Tiffany Carter Sellers. I'm running for Fulton County Superior Court because I believe that Fulton County and its residents deserve judges who are efficient, effective, excellent, and most importantly, committed to Fulton. Fulton County Superior Court judges are important and they affect your everyday life. Superior Court judges can marry you and they can divorce you. They can expand your family through adoption, and they can reduce the size of your family through the termination of parental rights. Superior Court judges hear land disputes. They preside over civil cases and can order one party or another to pay money. Superior Court judges hear appeals from municipal courts, from Fair Dismissal Act proceedings involving teachers. And of course, Superior Court judges preside over our most serious felonies. So it's important that we have Superior Court judges who are 100% committed to you, who have worked here in Fulton County, in this community, who have served the people of this community. It's important that we have Superior Court judges who, as I said before, don't just want to do the hard work associated with being a judge, but want to do the heart work, the work that comes from the heart. That's me. I am humbly asking for your vote. Election day is June 9th. Early voting starts on May 18th. And I know some of you have already received your absentee ballots. And I humbly ask for your vote and your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Judge Carnesel.
Thank you so much. I think I ran out of time before I discussed my vision for my courtroom and for Fulton County at length previously, so I'll do that as I conclude. Individuals coming into my courtroom know that I know the law, I follow the law, and that I'm interested in each and every individual coming before me. They know that I have a variety of lenses. They know that I have experience with prosecution, but that I'm a special needs parent. I understand mental health issues. I understand developmental disabilities, and I understand people who've never had the benefit of support. Now, I previously addressed the fact that I was the head of a large state agency, the Department of Family and Children's Services. And I think there is some insinuation that I'm not committed to Fulton County or I haven't worked in Fulton County. The truth is, I started my career in Fulton County. I started at the Attorney General's office in Atlanta, serving the citizens of Fulton County and the citizens of the entire state on murder appeals. I then moved forward to other offices throughout the state, but at many times through my career, I have assisted prosecution, trained professionals, litigated within the courts of Fulton County. I live and work in Fulton County. I am a longtime resident of Fulton County, as I said, 15 years. I'm involved in the school system. I don't just talk, I practice, and that's what's important. Children from Fulton County Public Schools, Fulton County Private Schools in North and South Atlanta are welcome and do come to my courtroom. I have a courtroom for youthful interested parties, and that's part of prevention. That's part of allowing kids to see what the system looks like before they're ever in trouble. They're allowed to ask me questions, they're allowed to pass me notes during court, and they follow up with me as a mentor. It's important to me to help the system in Fulton County provide justice. And I'm going to ask you for your vote on June 9th to allow me to remain in courtroom 5C. Thank you for letting me serve you.
Thank you, Judge Carnesel. Ms. Williams.
So I had a beautifully written speech prepared to tell you all, but I'm going to throw these papers out the window. Why am I running for judge? I'm running for judge because as someone who has lived, worked, served in this community for nearly 4 decades, what I know and what I know clearly is that Fulton County is a wonderful place. What I know and what I know clearly is that our lives are being affected by the decisions that our judges make. So I am running for Fulton County Superior Court judge, not just for me, not just for my mother, Shirley Williams, and my stepdad, Will Williams, who both live in East Point, not just for my brother, not just for my grandmother, and all of my family who lives here in Fulton County, but I'm running for us. I'm running for our children, I'm running for our families, and I'm running to make sure that our Fulton County stays a Fulton County that is wonderful, that is great, that is prospering, and that our Fulton County is one where people can walk down the street and feel like they are safe. My experience is experience that brings balance to the bench. I've represented people on all sides and all arenas of the Fulton County Superior Court. But here's what's most important about my experience. I bring to you life experience that cannot be gotten from any book, from any school, from any degree. It is that experience that we as everyday citizens get just by living, breathing, and walking. That experience that we get just by being a part of this community and being in this community for more than 5 years, for a lifetime. So we as Fulton County residents, we have to stand up and have our voices heard. I am a member of Impact Church. I'm a woman of faith. I'm a woman who is experienced in all aspects of the law that I would handle as a Fulton County Superior Court judge. I'm a daughter, I'm an aunt, I'm a friend, and I am your next Fulton County Superior Court judge. So on May 9th, whether it be by mail or in person, I'm asking you for your vote. I can tell you all about my accolades, but instead I'll ask you to go to my website, sharmilaforjudge.com. I promise you, if you Google Sharmila, there's one, and I'm the only one. But I'm asking you to go and vote Sharmila, someone who is a part of this community, has been and served in this community.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. And again, that election is June 9th. All right, Judge Reeder.
I appreciate the opportunity to be here this evening. When I think about attributes of a judge, I think about competency and I think about temperament. You can teach competency, but you cannot teach the other. I have both. I uphold my oath. I'm honest, I'm fair, I'm experienced, I'm diligent, and I treat all the people that come before me with dignity. I moved to Georgia with my family in the 1980s. I taught public school before returning to Georgia for my law degree and obtaining double dog status. Since law school and prior to my appointment to the bench in 2018, I practiced civil litigation and family law right here in Fulton County and in Metro Atlanta, receiving recognition as top in my field and in my profession, consistently listed as a top 100 lawyer in Georgia. While excelling in the law and in my profession, I continued to grow in public service, providing multitudes of pro bono service and giving back and paying it forward, weaving my prior teaching career into helping families in our community. And in the midst of this, I met my husband, Doug. We married 6.5 years ago, and I'm blessed to have him and his 2 children, Rachel, 24, and Jake, 26, and their significant others in my life. From the classroom to the courtroom, caring for families in our community and navigating citizens through crisis, I am your Superior Court judge. I listen to the evidence, I follow the law, and rule in a timely fashion. I never forget that my actions have an impact on real people, the people of Fulton County. I'm honored to serve with unwavering commitment to justice for all and to continue to serve for the next 4 years. I ask you tonight for your support and, more importantly, for your vote. For more information, please visit keepjudgereader.com or follow me on Facebook at Judge Rebecca Crumrine Reader, Fulton County Superior Court. Thank you again so much for the experience.
Thank you. Judge Osby?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you guys for having us on here. It's been quite a good time and good questions, but I understand in a forum like this, it's really difficult to know who I am as a person and as a judge, but I'll let you know I have 4 kids and I'm currently, a magistrate judge in Fulton. And I have been dedicated to the Superior Court since the beginning of my career as a law clerk, as a practicing attorney, and also now sitting by designation for non-complex in the Superior Court in Fulton. So when I was in private practice, I had the experience of practicing civil, criminal, bankruptcy, business litigation, probate, and just a wide variety. I have an extensive legal education, and I think all of those avenues and knowledges of different areas of the law, even though that might not be what's in front of you, it's going to help you make the decision to know the law and correctly apply that to these cases that we see. So I ask you guys to vote for Judge Ashley Baker Osby, and you can go to my website, osbyforjudge.com, and get more information. And I just look for your vote either by absentee ballot or on June 9th. Thank you.
Thank you. Judge Harris?
Thank you for hosting this wonderful forum. I sincerely appreciate the chance to talk directly to my neighbors in the city of South Fulton. As a wife, a bonus mom, a longtime Fulton County homeowner, I know that protecting our families is our top priority. That's why for the last 10 years, I worked hard as a full-time magistrate court judge, sitting by designation over the last 5 years as a Superior Court judge, serving our families and small businesses on their toughest days. I have 17 years of legal experience preceding the 10 years that I've spent as a full-time judge on the magistrate court bench. I've worked as a Fulton County DA, ADA. I've worked as a civil trial lawyer. I've worked for a small boutique law firm. At the beginning of my career, I started my career on the Fulton County Superior Court as a staff attorney for a judge, and later went with him to the Court of Appeals and worked as a staff attorney there. I love Fulton County. I went to college here in the 1980s. I even adopted my dog from Fulton County Animal Control. I love Fulton County. I'm proud to be a Fulton County resident and homeowner. I want you to know that when people come to my courtroom, they are treated with respect and the human dignity that we all deserve. I want you to know that when people come to my courtroom, it is a place where I want them to come in terms of the public coming and watching. I want you to know that I'll fight hard every day to make every Fulton County neighborhood safe until every Fulton County senior citizen feels safe in their homes. I know that we have more work to do. I'm Judge Melanie Leftridge Harris, and I really hope to earn your support, your prayers, and your vote on June 9th. My website is Melanie Leftridge Harris, that's Melynee, LeftridgeHarris.com. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Rabowski, Houston.
Thank you. And I want to thank everyone for the opportunity to appear at tonight's forum. As you've heard, this type of forum is important because Superior Court is important to you, the voters. And you will soon have the opportunity to choose the Superior Court judge that Fulton County deserves. I am that judge. In the voting booth or on the absentee ballot, you will have a choice to make. You can choose the judge with the broadest range of legal and judicial experience, which has spanned over 26 years, and who was recently named a 2020 Georgia Super Lawyer. You can choose the judge who is currently serving Fulton County by handling thousands of domestic relations and protective order cases. You can choose the judge that recognizes that the decisions that are made in these courtrooms affect people at some of the lowest points in their lives and can have far-reaching consequences. You can choose the judge that affords the parties the opportunity to be heard, gives them her undivided attention, and conducts proceedings in a manner that deserves respect and demonstrates respect for the parties and the process. You can choose the judge that takes pride in simply doing the work and doing it well. You can also choose to have all of that. By voting for me, Tamika Rabowski Houston, I would be honored to continue to serve Fulton County as your elected Superior Court judge, and I pledge to continue doing the work and doing it well. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Kuhn.
Thank you, Madam Proctor, and I have appreciated the Hollywood Squares Forum that y'all have been able to put together. As many of you know, my name is Liz Kuhn, and I have successfully represented thousands of Georgians in family law, personal injury, medical malpractice, bankruptcy, and criminal defense. I have a strong appellate record because I'm not afraid to take a judge up on appeal when they're wrong on the law and wrong on the facts. I mentor high school students, college students, law students, new attorneys, active attorneys, paralegals, so that people can have strong representation when they're fighting the odds. I'm a volunteer lawyer for people who can't afford a competent attorney. I have judged mock trial competitions at the local, state, and regional levels, and I have never stopped teaching, a profession that I hold dear to my heart. Currently, I'm educating homeowners about the dangers of mortgage forbearance and predatory lending issues. I do not want to see our people lose their homes. Outside of the law, I am also active in my community. I'm an upward basketball coach, a wrestling team manager, and active volunteer in the schools, just to name a few. My firm sponsors several programs for children, sponsors the breast cancer walk, the cystic fibrosis walk, all for our fellow citizens.
2 minutes have passed. 2 minutes have passed.
I apologize. I think the timer was sent at the wrong time. But for that, I ask that you vote for me, and you can look up my information on the website. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. All of you ladies are very talented. And I tell you, the voters are going to have a very tough decision on June 9th. We would like to thank all of you for your participation, as well as our YouTube audience. And to close us out this evening, I'd like to call on Councilwomen Gums and Willis, please, for your final thoughts.
Hello, everyone. That was an excellent forum. I commend you all for offering yourself for service. I was reading the comments, and a lot of the residents were making statements that this was a wonderful forum and they've never had this opportunity to really see their judge or their candidates in action. So thank you so much for doing this. Again, for me personally, it's wonderful to see so many amazing women that are offering their self for service. So I'm wishing you all the best. But again, thank you for participating in tonight's forum. Councilwoman Willis. She might be on mute. Are you on mute?
Yes, thank you
Okay.
to our, I'm sorry. Thank you to our moderator, Anjali Proctor. This was a, thank you to all the ladies who have offered themselves a service. I have to be honest, this, each of you all did well. And I would cast my vote for each of you, but you know, democracy calls, and this is a forum that is going to educate our voters, and our voters will make a decision. And so thank you for stepping up and serve those who are being to serve. Have a good day, have a good evening, and good luck. Good luck.
Yeah. Thank you.
And also to remind them that this is recorded.
Okay.
Also too, I want to remind you all that this is recorded. So please definitely share it in your newsletters, just so you can make sure that you also touch your constituent base. And again, Angelique, you were wonderful. So thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're going to share it in our newsletter as well, and share it on all of our social media sites, so that people will have an opportunity to go and view this form and inform decision. Ms. Fisher,
All right.
did you have anything to say? I guess she doesn't.
All right, we just want to apologize.
All
for-
right, well, have a good evening.
All righty, good evening. Take it.
Go ladies.
Bye.
Good luck.